Hello everyone, this is Pal Ponder on Weather, and this update we're going to be talking about a multi-day severe weather outbreak with all three modes of damaging winds, large hail, and a couple of tornadoes, including a major snowstorm and possible blizzard over the next 7 days, plus an announcement at the end of the video. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. We got a lot to talk about. This is Saturday, October 9th on the vorticity view. You can see it's pretty high and dry over Texas and the plains today. We're looking at this vorticity out here off the west coast here. That's going to bring some severe weather into parts of the Dakotas here today, but we got troughs setting up on the west coast here that's going to drag down all that colder air and multi-day severe weather outbreak and snow as well. So we got a lot to talk about. Here's the setup for today, because we do have some severe weather to be concerned about today in parts of the Dakotas, especially into South Dakota, as that vorticity will be sitting over your area. So you do have to be concerned about some large hail and some damaging winds in and around the Minneapolis and St. Paul area into Fargo, North Dakota, as well as much of South Dakota here as we get into the heat of the day, into the early afternoon hours, and going into the early evening. So as we take a look at the overall hazard map, you can definitely see we've got some freeze watches starting to show up in Nevada as well as parts of California. That's just the beginning setup of some very cold air that's coming in off the west coast, plus some high winds. That's an indication of some very powerful jet stream that's going to be coming across. So we've got high wind watches already taking place in parts of California and Nevada here, as well as red flag warnings. So this is already indication of some very high winds are going to be setting up, and this just intensifies, as well as we do have the beginning stages of a winter storm watch popping up in Idaho as well as Montana, and that will just expand as we go deeper into Sunday and especially early next week. So there's the potential record highs yesterday. That was the record highs yesterday. We also have some potential record highs today. So it's very warm, very unseasonable conditions in parts of Texas and Oklahoma and much of the South here. But that is going to be changing in a big way as we go throughout the week, and it's going to be feeling really nice by Saturday. So that's a lot to look forward to. But we got a lot of weather to talk about before then, because as we get into the day on Sunday night, we got that powerful jet stream that's given the high wind watches right now in California. That is going to be setting up over Texas and Oklahoma as this screams coming in from the west. That's on the 500 millibar. And then at the 850 millibar, we got winds coming in from the south. And that is the split it's going to be created in the atmosphere. That's going to set the stage for our severe weather right in the bullseye of Oklahoma, as well as North Texas. Because as we get into that Sunday night time frame, the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted enhanced risk, and they have expanded this from yesterday to much of Oklahoma, especially into Oklahoma City, into Tulsa, into Norman, into Lawton, the Broken Arrow area, as well as into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The enhanced risk is more or less into the northern counties in North Texas to the Red River. It dies down a little bit as you further into the Metroplex, but still has that slight risk over Dallas into Fort Worth, into Arlington and Plano. So obviously expect some changes within this, and it's probably going to only intensify. And in fact, this actually might go moderate as we get closer to the event, especially in Oklahoma City. So, and we're going to have to be dealing with those tornadoes as well. Unfortunately, with that split in the atmosphere, the Storm Prediction Center has a 10% chance of a tornado happening within this area. And it's a pretty big area into Oklahoma City, into Tulsa, going into Norman, into Lawton, and the Broken Arrow. That's where they have that enhanced risk. Where you're under the slight risk, that's where you have more of a 5% chance. So you can definitely see an isolated tornado really anywhere from Waco all the way to parts of Springfield, Missouri. So, and with the bullseye setting up especially into Oklahoma City. So as we get into that time frame, this is what the radar could look like as we go into Sunday night about 7 o'clock Central Time, as we could have breaking out. And this is the early indications of, supercells starting to break out. When a storm initiation happens, that's typically when you see the largest hail and possibly the biggest tornadoes before it forms into a solid line. So about 7 o'clock, storms should start get cranking in parts of West Texas as well as Oklahoma. And by the time we get into that 11 o'clock time frame, it kind of transitions from more of an isolated setup to more of an elongation, a squall line. And that's typically indicative of some very straight line damaging winds. With that setup, you could have some isolated spin ups within that boundary there, and this will push it off. This is more or less over the Fort Worth area by the time we get into that 11 o'clock time frame on Sunday night. And this will push from west to east across the DFW Metroplex. The main time for the Metroplex would be about 10 o'clock to about 2 o'clock in the morning as it moves from west to east. And so this will finally be in East Texas by the time we get into that 2 o'clock in the morning time frame, and be in eastern Oklahoma. But we got a lot of severe weather to deal with as we get into that probably 7 o'clock time frame in Oklahoma to about 2 o'clock. So that is the bullseye you've got to be concerned about. So definitely secure all loose objects and have all your cars in the garage if possible under cover, because with preparing for that severe weather event that's going to be on the table for Sunday night going to the early hours on Monday morning. So as we get into that Monday time frame, there's the circulation that will actually lift off to the northeast. That'll be over portions of Illinois going into Wisconsin on Monday, as we have to take a look at another powerful setup over the West Coast. That's going to bring even a stronger trough coming in as we get deeper into early next week, and with the snow flying by then into parts of the northwest. So yes, by Monday, we're going to have to be dealing with that severe threat as that vorticity just pushes off over into Chicago, into Illinois, going into St. Louis, into Fort Wayne, as well as Grand Rapids. You're going to be under the gun for that severe weather with that large hail, the damaging winds. And then still a marginal risk places for like Little Rock as we get into the day, and going into Memphis, Tennessee, portions of Milwaukee, as well as Madison here. So you're still going to be under the gun for that severe weather threat as we get into the day on that Monday afternoon. But on the backside, that's when the snow is going to be really starting to break out in portions of Oregon, Nevada here into Idaho, as well as especially in Montana, getting into portions of Wyoming. There's the heavier rains and the severe threat over Illinois by then. So as we get into that Tuesday time frame, man, there's that bowling ball trough really starting to dig in. Look at the isobars really starting to tighten up, and it's going to be an extremely dangerous day to be on the road in this area, especially for truck drivers, because the winds are going to be cranking under this jet stream right here. As we take a look at Pamela down to the south, and that should be a tropical storm by then, getting into parts of the eastern Pacific here. That could be a player for Texas as we get deeper into the week, as we have those troughs just setting up on the West Coast. And so yes, as we get into that Tuesday time frame, unfortunately, we got another round of severe weather in places like Lubbock, getting into the panhandle of Texas, as well as Lawton, Oklahoma again, and going into Kansas. So you're going to be under the gun for that severe weather as that another powerful jet stream and that trough really starts to set the stage over the plains with yet another round for severe weather. But on the backside, that snowstorm starts to really crank in and gets down to a 995 millibar low pressure. That's when the higher winds are going to start to pick up, and these totals are going to be starting to pick up in a big way, if not double digits by then, especially into portions of Montana. As we get into Wyoming, places like Casper, places like Billings, Montana is going to probably get crushed from this system, as we've got Pamela down here developing as a tropical storm, and that is going to be able to push further off into Mexico, and that's the day on a Tuesday. So as we get into that Wednesday time frame, things get really interesting. The snowstorm starts to kind of wind down, but really starts cranking up over Montana. That's when we could probably have those blizzard-like conditions when the millibars drop down to 995 here, and you already had a foot of snow on the ground. Now the winds are going to be cranking, heavy snow is going to be pumping in, and then we got Pamela now developing into a hurricane down here in the eastern Pacific, getting dangerously close to the Cabo San Lucas area as that comma-cute shape takes shape over the plains again. that is moving that severe threat over the Dallas-Fort Worth area again, over Oklahoma City again, over Kansas again. So that is going to be bringing another round of severe weather with that colder air in the backside, rain and snow for them. So there's the temperature anomalies. We see subtle hints of that cold front trying to push into Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, this thing's just crawling, but all the colder air is going to be off to the west coast. But eventually that cold front's going to give in and eventually push off into the east, because by the time we get into that Thursday time frame, the severe weather threat will be over by Texas and Oklahoma by then. But we also have to start looking out for a heavy rain event, because of the remnants of Pamela will ring itself out over Mexico. And then as it does that, the cold front that's finally going to be pushing into Texas by then will more or less stall over the region. That could set up some convective banding with some heavy rain potential, possibly setting up over the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as that cold front will more or less kind of really start to ooze its way through the Metroplex. So we could be looking at not a severe threat by Thursday, but a heavy rain threat as we get into central Texas, into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, with complements of Pamela and that cold front with the 1-2 punch. As the snowstorm tries to still ring itself out over much of Montana and Wyoming. So as we get into the day on Friday, there's that cold front continuing to push, bringing that colder air finally into Texas. You get a reprieve from the heat, and as the cold air will eventually shift off further off into portions of Missouri, then getting into portions of Illinois with that rain moving in by then. There is the temperature anomalies by next Saturday. You can finally see that cold air finally wins out and pushes all the severe weather threat to it. Now you're bringing that 5 and 10 degrees temperature below average anomalies back into Oklahoma and Texas and New Mexico, and getting into portions of Arkansas and Louisiana. So yes, by the time we get into that Saturday time frame, that's a week away. This is next Saturday. Man, all the potential record high temperatures you're going to be dealing with today in the mid 90s. Now we're talking more like in the 60s in the afternoon. So that is more like it for fall weather. So we got a lot of weather to deal with between now and then, but the grand prize at the end of the tunnel is 60s coming up for next weekend. So definitely be looking out for that, as that colder air will continue to push further off into the east. And so there's the wind threat we're going to have to be concerned about between now and then, with those pressure gradients, especially over Arizona and New Mexico here. It's going to be dangerously hard to travel in these conditions, especially for those high top vehicles and the 18-wheelers on the road. Definitely be on the lookout for that, with a big area of the country getting those higher impact winds of at least 50, 60, upwards to 70 miles an hour at times into much of the Dakotas here into Colorado, as well as especially into Arizona and New Mexico, as that jet stream will scream across. There's the wind threat getting dangerously close from Pamela to Cabo San Lucas. But once those hits those mountains and the higher terrain, it just rips apart and shreds the moisture into Texas. So that is going to be a welcome rain after the 1-2 punch from severe weather. Now you're getting heavier rains from the complements of Pamela and the cold front that will finally push through. There's the banding. So we definitely have to be concerned about heavier rains setting up where that cold front can stall into the day on Thursday, within Texas and Oklahoma, getting into Kansas as well as Missouri. But still some heavier rains with those vorticities into portions of the Dakotas, especially North Dakota, as we have to watch this system off the Carolina coast as well. That could become a weak, what they call subtropical storm, Wanda. If it does form, it will be named Wanda, but it'll spread some heavier rains off the coastal regions of the Carolinas. So that could develop actually as a subtropical storm by Monday, possibly. And if it does, it will get named, but I don't really think it actually makes landfall, as it will push off to see, but still make some heavier rains off the coastal regions. But there's the snow. It's going to be definitely cold enough to snow, and some big totals are setting up over Montana as well as Wyoming here, getting into west of Denver. So I don't think it actually snows in Denver, maybe a couple of flurries, but this is all west of Denver and then going into Utah. But that'll be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday time frame, and it'll ring itself out on Thursday as the snow will stop by then, but leaving some impressive totals upwards to several feet in spots. So I'm expecting a pretty big event from this storm, and we could even have possible blizzard-like conditions as we get into Tuesday night and especially into Wednesday, going into portions of Wyoming into Montana here. But there's the big announcement. We're getting a new puppy, guys. We have an 11-year-old Jack Russell Terrier currently, but we are getting a new PAL family member for the family, and it's a girl, a corgi girl. Right now it's available for pickup around November the 6th, but I need you to help me name it. So I am getting an official puppy, and I would love your help out there to get a name for my new corgi girl puppy that I'm going to be picking up. I have to drive to Missouri, but I'm driving to Missouri to pick her up on that, probably like November the 6th time frame. It's going to be available. We just got approved to have her last night, so I'm super excited about this. But definitely I need your help out there. Give me some ideas, and what did you think I should name my new corgi girl puppy? So I appreciate you guys watching out there. Do like this video, give it a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.